Hi, welcome to week 3 of City Vision University's Prior Learning Assessment Portfolio Development course. In this week, you're going to be focused on developing what we call a learning inventory, which basically what it is identifying potential courses that you might try to get credit for and identifying potential course objectives and syllabi that you can use. So just as a review and also tying it with this week. So last week, what you did is, if you're looking for what courses can you get credit for, last week you tried to basically fill out this circle, subjects you have significant experience or learning in. So that's your resume and your learning autobiography. And this week is where you're going to be focusing on subjects where there's an accredited college course syllabus. And then there's going to be subjects that City Vision has faculty with expertise in, and Ken can give you feedback on that in the course, your professor can. And what you're going to do is you're going to create a learning inventory at the intersection of all three. Now, there's several steps, and there's a guide that we have for this week and the steps to create a learning inventory. So step 1, and that's where I'm going to focus most of the effort in training you, is you need to identify courses in an accredited institution that correspond to your request for prior learning assessment. So typically this can be done by typing in course name and then the word syllabus into Google. So example, New Testament survey syllabus. I almost always include site:.edu because you'll get a bunch of spam often if you just type it without that, but this will limit it so that it only searches sites that end with .edu. So that usually limits the search to accredited universities. Not all .edus are accredited. Sometimes they're just licensed by their state. And so, for example, you type in New Testament survey syllabus site:.edu. And the key thing is you need to get a syllabus that has a section that either, sometimes they'll call them course objectives, sometimes they'll call them course outcomes. And the organization or the institutions need to be accredited. They can be either regionally or nationally accredited. But you want to also know whether the course is, how many credits it is and whether it's undergraduate or graduate. So if you're a graduate student, you can only use graduate courses, and undergrads should only use undergrad courses. Now, there's going to be times whenever you may not even know what a course is called, especially if you're looking for several courses in one domain. And it can be helpful to look up degree programs to try to figure out what are the common names that are used for various courses to know how to do searches. So I'm going to show you some examples of how to go about that, and then I'm going to come back to this. So here I typed in New Testament survey syllabus site:.edu, and then I opened up the first two. And you can see here, this is Moody Distance Learning. They have goals that's different from objectives. And the objectives, these are pretty well written. You can see this is lower level Bloom's. He's saying describe, then summarize is a little bit more complicated. And then identify, that's also lower level Bloom's, and lower level Bloom's, and this is also lower level Bloom's. So now what you do, so you could use this in your learning inventory, but you might want to look to see which ones are best. So this is another one, and by the end of this course, if it's well written, usually it's going to say something like this. By the end of this course, the student should be able to this is not well written. It's hard to identify. How do you know that someone comprehends? This is also a more complicated wording because value the New Testament. The learning I showed you was what's called cognitive learning. This is actually what's called effective learning. So that one's going to be a lot more complicated to use. And then read the New Testament more critically. My assessment is this is not a well written. These are not well-written outcomes. And so I would go with the Moody Bible Institute. So what you would do is you would go through and you're going to get, okay, this is a 4 credit hour course. It's New Testament survey. Often level 100, 200, 300, and 400 are undergraduate, whereas 500 and 600 usually and 700 are graduate. In this case, they have 4-digit courses. So what you're going to do is we have this course inventory, and you're going to start to try to fill in this inventory. So in this case, the course name, the topic you could put here, it may be different from the name. So it could be accounting, and then you'd have a specific course name for it. And this was used in the past. It was from Liberty, but that one's no longer there. So then you could put the syllabus there. You want to put the number of credits in this next item, whether it's graduate or undergraduate. Now, some of you may be trying to get credit for unaccredited training programs. So you attended a Bible school that wasn't accredited and it's not a partner with City Vision. So you would put yes if that was the case. Most of you are going to just ignore the rest of these comments. And if you had a syllabus for that program, then you're going to want to include that in some of your evidence. And then you would explain, where you got credit for that. So in this case, let's just say this person was a pastor for 20 years and had taught out of the New Testament for 20 years and, wants to get credit, based on that. Now, a couple examples to look at. So, accounting is another example that I used. And in this case, you go down the course, and the key thing to recognize on these courses is the learning outcomes. So, and to see if these are well written. These look fairly well written. So if you're wanting to use this for accounting, then you could copy this into your learning inventory, and then you come up with a name. Now, this is financial accounting. So say you were a specialist in accounting and you wanted to get master's credit for accounting, or you're a specialist in human resources. What you would want to do, because you might be able to get credit in multiple topics. So you could go and if this is the master's level, you'd go human resources. What you want to do is you want to look at what are the degrees and what are the courses called. So you would go to human resources master's programs and then site.edu. And then you can look up these to try to find what are some of the courses named here. And often you can go into these and you can get a list. So here it shows some of their names. So they have human resources strategy. That's probably going to be a common course name. Organizational design, I know that's a common course name. Some of these total rewards, I know it's a buzzword right now in HR. I'm guessing that's not as common, but it might be. So you could try searching for these. But let's just say you wanted to try to get credit for human resources strategy. Often, so what you would do is you would type in human resources strategy syllabus. And then you can see if you can find something. So this is a course, human resources strategy. And you can see here it has good course objectives. Now, some of you may look in areas where there is no syllabus. If you remember our chart here, if you've ever worked with an accounting department and you've ever tried to get reimbursed for an expense where you didn't have a receipt, the philosophy of accounting departments basically is if you don't have a receipt, it didn't happen. That's kind of the philosophy of accreditors. Ultimately, if you don't have a documentation trail, it didn't happen, that you can't get credit for it. So just explaining again what you can get credit for. This is what you have experience in. This is subjects where there's an accredited college course with a syllabus. So you need to do a Google search on that, and you need to become a Google ninja. Like half of the hard part of this week, actually more than half, probably about 3/4 of the hard part of this week is going to be becoming a Google search ninja. So learning these different things, like put a site.edu in it, and then learning to figure out what is the right course name. So whenever I start looking for human resources strategy, if I didn't find anything, I probably would have typed in strategic human resources. Often Google can figure that out, but sometimes making a slight change. And then what you're going to do is you're going to compile what courses you think that you can get credit for. And whereas last week was kind of like a brainstorming session of everything possible, This week, you want to limit it a little bit more. You may list 6 things, and Ken may come back and say, well, it's probably only likely you're going to get 3. So let's start with those. And essentially, this is going to be like the outline for the rest of your learning narrative section. So because each course that you're trying to get credit for, you're going to have to provide somewhere between 3 and 10 pages to document it. It's actually fairly rare that you get credit for just 3 pages, but often if you have the other things that you can use, and we'll talk about evidence a little bit later, but some of what you can use for evidence, any sort of certifications you have, any sort of industry credentials that you have, those can be great. Any sort of certificates, non-accredited, anything that you can show that can be useful later. So your goal is to create this spreadsheet, and in some cases you might want to actually list more than one syllabus, and then upload that for your assignment this week. So if you have any questions, please ask your faculty member. Thanks.